I didn't realize someone had been watching me for 3 weeks before I even noticed him the first time. And when I think back now, really think back, I can pinpoint the exact moment it started. I just didn't know it then. My name is Daniel. I'm 29. I live alone in a small rental house in Clarksville, Tennessee. Nothing fancy, just a 2-bedroom place on a quiet street called Merritt Lane. I work night shifts at a logistics warehouse about 12 miles out of town, which means I'm leaving home around 10 at night and getting back somewhere between 6 and 7 in the morning. That schedule, that very predictable, very consistent schedule, is what made me an easy target. It was a Tuesday in late October. When I first saw him, ID just pulled into the gas station on Riverside Drive. The old Marathon station with the flickering fluorescent light over pump for that the owner had been meaning to fix for probably 2 years. I had my window down. It was cold, but I liked the air on long drives. I was filling up before heading to work. I noticed him because of the car. It was a beige, late 90s Buick LeSabre. The kind of car that just exists, you know? No markings, no personality. It was parked at the far edge of the lot, away from the pumps, facing toward the road. Engine off. No one going inside. No one getting out. I glanced at it once, and didn't think much of it. Maybe someone was on their phone. Maybe they were waiting for someone inside. I finished pumping, grabbed my receipt, got back in. When I pulled out onto Riverside, I looked in my rearview mirror out of habit. The Buick pulled out right after me. I turned left on Callaway. The Buick turned left. I merged onto the highway. The Buick merged onto the highway. Now my stomach did something. Not full panic, more like a quiet warning signal. Like your body knows something your brain hasn't fully processed yet. I switched lanes. The Buick switched lanes. I took the exit for Greenwood Industrial, the long route to my warehouse that most people didn't know to use. I used it because it shaved 4 minutes off my commute. The Buick took the exit. I called my coworker Marcus on Bluetooth and kept talking to him the whole rest of the way, watching my mirror the entire time. The Buick followed me all the way to the warehouse road, and then, just before I pulled into the facility lot, it stopped, right at the edge of the road, and it sat there. I parked, went inside, and told myself it was a coincidence. 3 days later, I saw the Buick again. Same gas station, same pump for, same far corner of the lot. This time I walked toward it, and I want you to understand, that is absolutely not something I would normally do. I'm not that guy. But I was tired, I was annoyed, and some stubborn part of me needed to know that I got about 20 feet away. The engine started, the car left. Fast, not squealing tires dramatic, but fast. Purposeful. Like whoever was inside had been watching me the whole time, and made the decision the second I started walking toward them. I called the non-emergency police line that night. The officer I spoke to was polite, but basically told me that without a plate number, a description of the driver, or an actual threatening incident, there wasn't much they could do. He told me to take note of the plate if I saw it again and call back. That felt incredibly unhelpful. But I wrote it down anyway. I bought a small notebook and started logging every time something felt off. The next 2 weeks were quiet. Nothing. I started to convince myself it was over. Maybe I'd spooked whoever it was by walking toward them. Maybe it had all been coincidental, and I was just paranoid that I stopped checking my mirrors so obsessively. I stopped scanning parking lots. That was a mistake. On a Friday night, almost 2 weeks after the last incident, I came home from my shift at 6:40 in the morning. Sun barely up. I pulled into my driveway, killed the engine, and sat there for a second the way I always do. Just decompressing. That's when I noticed the side gate to my backyard. It was open. I sat in my car for a full minute without moving. Then I called 911. 2 officers arrived within 8 minutes. They walked the perimeter, checked the backyard, checked the gate. One of them found something near my back porch that I will never forget. There was a cigarette, but on my back step. Fresh. Recent enough that the officer could smell it. Someone had been standing at my back door, watching my house through the kitchen window, and had been there long enough to smoke a cigarette down to the filter point. One of the officers asked me if I had any idea who might be doing this. And that's when I showed him my notebook. Every date, every time, every location. The gas station, the Buick, the warehouse road. He looked at his partner. Something passed between them. He told me he wanted me to stay somewhere else that night, that I stayed at Marcus Place that weekend. On Sunday, I got a call from the officer. A Detective Hale, who asked me to come down to the station. They'd found the Buick. It was parked 3 streets over from my house. Had been there for at least 4 days based on the parking tickets on the windshield. Inside the car, and this is where I felt the floor drop out from under me, there were printed photographs of my house, of my car, of me, walking to my car, at the gas station, pulling out of the warehouse lot. There was also a handwritten schedule, my schedule, written out in someone else's handwriting. 10:12 p.m. Leaves for work. 6:30, 6:45 a.m. Returns home. Gas station stop, Tuesday and Friday usually. They knew everything. The person who owned the Buick was identified. I'm not going to say his name. What I will tell you is that he had no prior criminal record, lived about 40 minutes away in a town I'd never been to, and, as far as investigators could determine, had no prior relationship or connection to me whatsoever. No motive that made any sense. No explanation for why. He chose me. He was arrested 2 days later. Found inside an extended stay motel room with more printed out photos, a copy of my lease agreement that had somehow obtained, and a map of Merritt Lane with my house circled in red pen. He never broke into my home. He never physically confronted me. The DA explained that he could be charged with stalking, criminal trespassing, for entering my backyard, and a handful of related charges. That was the part that disturbed me the most, honestly. Not what he did, what he was working up to. I moved out of that house 6 weeks later. I don't live in Clarksville anymore. I changed my work schedule. I vary my routes, every single day, intentionally. But here's what I think about sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep. He was at my back door, standing there in the dark, watching my kitchen light, and I was asleep inside, completely unaware. 3 weeks of watching. And I almost never knew. Be aware of patterns. Not just other people's patterns. Your own, because someone else might be counting on them.